In this lesson, we're going to be learning how to build a rig for our lamp, but first we'll go through the process of how to build a lamp. So let's go ahead and create a new file. We're going to start by showing our grid, make sure that we can see that so we know where we're going. And we're going to create a polygon primitive and a cylinder. So you'll see the cylinder will come in. We're going to tweak a couple of values. First thing we're going to do is we're going to move it up 1 in the Y. And then we're going to go into our polygon cylinder and we're going to change the radius to 8. You'll see the base is pretty good there. So we'll go ahead and make a quick change here. Let's change this to 24. We'll go to Edit, Delete by Type and History, and then we'll go to Modify Freeze Transforms. Now you don't have to do that on this because we're going to combine this with other geometry, but that's just a good habit to get into. Okay, once we've done that, we'll go ahead and we'll create another cylinder. So we'll go to Polygon Primitives and Cylinder. You'll see it'll create it inside. So we're just going to move it up a little bit here, right? So this is going to be the connection between our base and our lamp arm. We're going to scale this down a little bit. So we're going to change all of the scales to be 0.5. So just click on all of your scale nodes here and say 0.5. And then we're just going to move this down a little bit. Doesn't need to be big. You can just scale it up just a little bit. Okay, next we're going to go create another polygon primitives and cylinder, and this one we're going to move up. Okay, and we're going to turn this 90 degrees. We're going to turn it 90 degrees in the Z. You'll be able to know whether that's the right way. If you go here into your side view, you should be able to see the side of the cylinder. In the front view, you should see the front of the cylinder. And then we're just going to open up our polygon cylinder input, and we'll change the radius to 2. So you'll see it'll make it a little bit bigger. You can go and move that down until it's sitting right on top of that other cylinder. And that'll be a good start for our lamp. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a polygon primitive and a cube, not a cylinder this time. So let's go ahead and move that up. We can see it here in our window. So we are going to change a couple of different aspects of this. We're going to go ahead and make the width, leave the width 1. We're going to change the height to 8. Okay, and we'll change the depth to 2. So you'll see that that'll make it a little bit wider. Let's go ahead and move this up. And actually, let's change the height to be 12. Okay, so the height is 12. We're just going to move this up. And we'll move it up till it's like kind of sitting in the base of that little circle there, right? So this is going to be our first joint. We'll go ahead and duplicate this, Control D or Edit Duplicate. We're going to move this up. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to go into my side view, and I'm going to go right over here, and I'm just going to make sure that I snap to a grid square. Now I'm having trouble seeing the geometry over here, so you can go into shading and turn on wireframe on shaded. So now I've got a pretty good version of my arm there. So what I'm going to do now is select both the lower arm and the upper arm, and we're just going to go to Edit and Duplicate, and then we'll go ahead and we'll move this up. We'll just move this up so that it's sitting sort of in that arm there. And then I'm just going to make sure that I snap this here to a grid square. So hold down your X and then just move it up here until it's sitting on a grid square. So now our upper arm and our lower arm are about the same. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create the head of the lamp. So we'll go here to Create, Polygon Primitives, and Cylinder. And we'll go ahead and move this up. Now, unlike our joints here, we're going to rotate this 90 degrees in the X. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll scale this up just a little bit. This is going to be the base of our lamp. We'll move this up. And then we're going to go ahead and select components of this. So we're going to right click on our cylinder. We're going to go to Vertex, and we're going to grab these vertices here. We're going to drag this out, and we're going to open it up. So let's scale up just these vertices. And you see that it's going to create kind of like a cone shape. Okay, so let's go ahead and select this. And we're going to move this forward just a little bit here. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to right click on the cylinder that we've just selected. We're going to go to Edge, and we're going to select one of these edges. So we're going to click on this edge. Then we're going to hold down the Control key. We're going to right click and say Edge Ring Utilities to Edge Ring and Split. And you'll see it creates this line down the center. This is an equal line that's equidistant from the beginning and the end of our cylinder. We'll go ahead and go to Edges again, and we will double click on this. You'll see that when you double click, it'll select all of the edges that make up that ring. And then we're just going to scale this down a little bit. Okay, so now we've got the head of our lamp. We're going to do some refinements to the lamp. So let's go ahead and do that first at the base here. So I'm going to select my base. I'm going to select Edge, double click on the edge here, and then I'm going to go up here and I'm going to make sure that I am set on modeling. Okay, under mesh or edit mesh, I'm going to go to bevel. I'll go to the option box just so I can see it. The default should be good, so if you hit bevel, you'll see it'll kind of create this little bevel here. It'll create two edges from one, and it'll pop up this little window here. So we're just going to put in segments. We're going to write 3, and you'll see now it makes kind of a rounded base for our lamp. Now we can scale this up if we want. We can scale the base up. You can scale, make it deeper or wider. You can make the bevel larger, but that's basically what we're going to do for that. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go up here to the top of the lamp. We're just going to select the edge. We're going to double click on this edge ring, and we're going to go again to edit mesh and bevel. And you'll see that it kind of spaces it out there. We're going to change the segments to 3, so it makes kind of a curve. Then we're going to double click on the top edge here. We're going to go to edit mesh and bevel again. And we're going to change the segments to 3. Okay, so now we got a basic lamp here. The last thing we need to do is our lamp is kind of filled here, so we're going to need to get rid of these faces. So let's go ahead and go to vertex and select this vertice. Now once you've selected the vertice in the middle here, you're going to hold down the control key, right click, and go to faces. And you'll see it'll open up another pop-up, and you just say to faces. And you'll see that it easily selects all of the faces on the edge here, or on the front face. The other way you can do that is you can go to faces, and then in the side view you can drag select around where those faces are, and then hold down control and deselect it. Okay, so then just hit delete, and you'll see now it opens it up. But the inside of our, the head of the lamp here is black, and that's because the lamp has normals, and the normals are facing out. The normals are basically geometry components that tell the geometry how to shade when it's hit by lighting. So what we need to do is we need to copy the faces on the outside to the inside and reverse them. And the easiest way to do that is just to select this object, and then you're going to go to edit mesh, and you're going to go down here to extrude. And you'll see when you do that, it kind of flips it so the outside's black and the inside is gray, but it creates this little handle here. And what we're going to do is select the blue handle, the Z, and we're going to push it in. Now you see when we push it in, the whole thing turns black. That's because the normals now are on this object are faced in, and they're facing the wrong direction. So we're going to fix that. So let's select our object here. And you'll see under mesh display that there will be a little normal section here. You'll see the little gray text that says normals, and we're going to go to reverse. So when you go to reverse, it will change the shading, so the lamp head will be shaded correctly on the inside and on the outside. The last thing we're going to do now is we're going to create a bulb, and the easiest way to do that is to go to create, polygon primitives, and sphere. And then we're just going to take that sphere, we're going to move it upward, and we're going to move it over. Now we want to snap it to the center, vertical center of our object. So we'll just go ahead in here and we'll hold down the V key, and we're just going to snap it to the center of that object. Okay, so now that we've created our sphere, we just need to scale it up. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees in the X, and then I'm going to go into my polysphere component, and I'm just going to change it to 12. This will just make simpler geometry that'll render a little bit faster. So let's just scale this up. And it'll look kind of like there's a light bulb in there, and that's all we really want. We just want something that's going to approximate what a light bulb might look like. Okay, so the head of my lamp is a little bit big, so let's go ahead and scale that down a little bit. So we're just going to select both the lamp and the bulb, and we'll just scale these down just a little bit here. And then we'll move them down. You just want the head to be big, but not too overly proportional, so you don't want it to be too big. So we'll just move this in. Okay, and then I'll take my bulb, and I'm going to move it in here. Okay, so the last thing we want to do is we want to kind of dress this up a little bit with some textures. So let's go ahead and go into our hypershade. If you go to Windows, Rendering Editors, and Hypershade, it'll come up here. You can make it a little bit smaller. All right, and I'm going to create two textures. So let's create a blend material. You just click on the word blend. Blend's going to be kind of a metal or a shiny material, and then we're going to create a Lambert. So if you click on Lambert, you can also go up here to create, you can go to materials, and then you can say blend, and you can say Lambert. Either one of those works. So the Lambert that we create, we're just going to make our bulb. So we'll just name this bulb_M, and then our lamp this is going to be our lamp shader, so we'll just go ahead and select this, and we'll call this lamp underscore M. Just name it a material. So for my lamp, I'm just going to make it something a little nicer than just plain gray, so I'll make it a little like kind of a dark red. And you'll see that when I select all these objects, I can just drag select around all these objects. Don't get the bulb. You can go to the blend, where I called it lamp, and I can right click on this and say assign material to selection. You can also drag it out directly there, and you'll see that the red's a little bit hot, so let me select lamp, and then I just double click on the color again, and I can adjust the color to be a little bit darker, a little bit less opaque. Okay, so that's a good way to go for that. So I'll say done, and the next thing I want to do is I want to select my bulb. And you'll notice when I select my bulb that the bulb is looking pretty faceted. Let's go ahead and fix that first. So with the bulb selected, you can go up here, make sure you're set on modeling, and you'll go to mesh display, and under normals you're just going to say soften harden edges, and you'll just say soft hard, set your angle to be 80, and you'll say soft hard, and you'll notice now it's looking pretty smooth. So let's go ahead and click on this, and then just the same way we'll right click on the bulb material that we just made and say assign to selection. You'll see it'll come up white. Now if I click on bulb here, I can edit the material properties, and I can just turn the ambient up, and I can turn the incandescence up, and that just makes it look like the bulb is on. Okay, once that's done, then we're done with our model and we're ready to go into animation. But before we do, or to rigging, but before we do, we want to select all of the objects of our lamp. You'll see there's all these objects over here. We're going to go up to mesh, and we're going to go to combine. And once you've done that, you'll see it'll name it whatever the last object selected was, and it'll have all these history nodes. So we'll go to edit, delete by type, and history, and then we'll double click on this. We'll call this lamp underscore mesh. Okay, we're ready to go. So the next phase of this is going to be to build the rig.